Howdy folks, good late morning. How are we all doing? It is Wednesday, December 15th, 2021. It is yet another gorgeous day to be outside once again. So right now, brought out the kayak once again today. And I'm actually over at the Peace River. Now, Peace River is located in Charlotte, DeSoto County, but it also spans in other counties as well. And I will tell you, going upriver with this one is not as easy as I thought it would be. You have to put up a little bit of a fight. You have to be prepared. Use them arms. But the Peace River is actually one of the longest rivers known in southwest Florida. It actually spans for about 100 or so miles, for those of you who did not know. Now, the Peace River is actually very similar to that of the Mayaca River, but there is a variation in it. And a lot of it has to do with its geologic history, which, by the way, I will mention in a separate video. But this video, I really wanted to emphasize about the importance of water. Because frankly, I feel water, especially around here, is really taken for granted. And with that being said, water is one of my favorite topics to really cover, especially in a video. So, now let's cut to the chase. The Peace River is a freshwater stream, just like that of the Mayaca River. And it is also, the Peace River is a meandering stream. So you may be wondering, what does that mean? A meandering stream basically describes a stream that behaves like that of a snake. So it has a lot of curves, turns, you name it. And a river usually does that because it finds that path of least resistance. So wherever is easier, the water will always go there. So where I'm standing on right now, this side of the river, is actually something called a point bar, or as I like to say it, a point bar. It's essentially where more of the sediments will accumulate. And it's usually on the outside edge of a curve. And then the other side, which is over here, is something called a cut bank. Well, actually, I think it's the other way around. I'm actually standing on the cut bank, and that is the point bar. Pardon me. The point bar is on that side, and that is usually where sediments tend to accumulate a bit more, especially sand, for the matter, or decaying leaves, whatever, and soil. But then the side that I'm standing on is the cut bank. So it's usually where more of the erosion occurs. So usually, like on this side of the stream, where I am right now, the current is a bit faster in terms of velocity. Here's the thing, mates. Some of you may think that velocity and speed are the same thing. Actually, it isn't. Speed is just a general description for an acceleration over time. But velocity is that same speed that I'm discussing, but it's more specific. So it talks about, so velocity describes the direction of the movement. And then ties into another term when it comes to rivers, something called a discharge. And a discharge describes the velocity of the water multiplied by the cross-sectional area of a river. in a particular section. So that is discharge. So like right now, the discharge is probably only 100 cubic feet per second. And that's usually how it's measured, is cubic feet per second. It may even be less than that, because it looks fairly calm. But here's where it gets really important about the Peace River. It is this stream that really supplies most of this area of Florida. This river supplies most of the fresh water that people drink in their homes and even bathe in. So if it were not for this river right here, we would have even less accessibility to water. So even it's most likely that even in Inglewood, for instance, it's most likely that I use some of this water right here. Or especially the residents of Port Charlotte and Punta Gorda. This is their main source of water right here, because it's fresh. However, it still has to, of course, go to a water treatment plant for, decontaminating. But this is it, right here. Now, right now, it's actually a bit lower, so it's a bit more shallow. That's just because we haven't had as much rain. But the Peace River is one of the most unscathed rivers in this area. Even more unscathed than that of the Mayaca. So like for instance, to my right, we have something, we're actually seeing a bit more of the bedrock right here. I mean, you can still pick it apart quite easily, but you can tell it's looking a bit more compact. So the most common bedrock that is found in Florida is, of course, limestone, which is a compound described as calcium carbonate. Hold on a second. Give me a second, you guys. Okay, now I finally had a chance to move over. So yes, we're seeing a bit of the limestone right now. I mean, it's not fully compact yet, but it is making its way. So like right here, this is pure limestone. So here's the thing. The Peace River headwaters are a bit further up north, probably about, 50 to 70 miles still further up north. And it actually starts at a place called Lake Hancock. And that's actually based in Lakeland. But those headwaters are essentially where the birth of this river begins. That's what headwaters means. It's basically the genesis of a river. But here's one thing to keep in mind though. You may notice there are quite a few swamps around here, as you probably have seen. And unfortunately, a lot of those swamps, majority of them have been wiped away. Partially because many developers thought it was unappealing. And of course, they wanted to build, complexes, houses, businesses, you name it. So personally, I think it's actually quite opposite. Swamps and marshes are actually quite gorgeous. I say that because it's usually one of the most biodiverse ecosystems in Florida. In the form of mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians. Now, here's an importance though. These swamps that I mentioned, that is where water can actually have a chance to settle and then sink its way down into the groundwater, underground. And with that being said, a lot of those nutrients that are in the water, they have a chance of being absorbed. Not only that, but the deeper the water goes into the ground, it runs into that limestone. It percolates. So once it percolates, the limestone helps clean the water, and then it will eventually recharge. Recharge means it will eventually make its way back up. And then once it's ready, it becomes discharge as it makes its way onto the stream. So it's kind of like a reset for the water to get cleaner. We really owe those ecosystems for the quality of our water. It improves it. And it's just quite amazing how that all happens naturally without it being tampered with. And I think that's why this river has hardly been touched, because it is such an important source. And essentially, the river that we're seeing, it's essentially over something called a watershed. A watershed describes basically a body of water that is subterranean. And the river is like the tip of the watershed berg. I thought that was a good way of putting it. But yeah, we owe a lot. And, you know, with that being said, that's why this is one of my favorite topics to cover. So even our limestone acts as a filter. So, alright you guys, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something of value in the video, and this is really worth checking out, you guys. So alright, take care, enjoy your Wednesday, and Journey on a Journey is once again outwards. Take care, folks. See ya.